Oh Azania, izwe lethu, solithatha ngebhazuka, from Cape to Cairo, home Morocco to Madagascar, lena Azania, izwe lethu, solithatha ngebhazuka, from Cape to Cairo, home Morocco to Madagascar. Thina Sizwe, Thina Sizwe, esimnya sikhalela, sikhalela, izwe lethe lathathwa, elathathwa abamhlophe mabawuyeke, mabawuyeke umhlaba wethu, mabawuyeke, mabawuyeke umhlaba wethu. Abantwana, abantwana be-Afrika, ayibo bakhalela, bakhalela, izwe lethe lathathwa, elathathwa abamhlophe mabawuyeke, mabawuyeke umhlaba wethu, mabawuyeke, mabawuyeke umhlaba wethu. Very good morning, it's Penuel the Black Pen. Just a bit of context, the first song being Azania. Oh Azania, izwe lethu, solithatha ngebhazuka. A lot of Black South Africans still recognize South Africa as Azania, which was a name that was made popular by the Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC, which was founded by Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe. South Africa still does not officially have a name as a country. We are seen as a geographic location, being the southern part of Africa, and a lot of Black South Africans felt that a name like Azania would be a great name for this country. It's a struggle song. It's a song about how the people of South Africa, the black people of South Africa that were oppressed and under the struggle and under the exploitation of, in particular, white British people and white Afrikaans people, and how they were willing to fight and die and kill for this country. For those that may not know, the name Azania is actually from Greek. It's of Greek origin. It's a name that has been applied to various parts of southeastern tropical Africa. In the Roman period, and perhaps earlier, the toponym referred to a portion of the Southeast Africa coast, extending from northern Kenya to the border between Mozambique and South Africa. Azania was mostly inhabited by southern Cushitic peoples whose groups would rule the area until the Great Bantu migration. Ancient Azania was a region in ancient Arcadia, which was, according to Pausanias, named after the mythical king Azan. According to Herodotus, the region contained the ancient town of Paus. The use of this name coincides with a reference in which Pliny the Elder mentions an Azanian sea that began around the Emporium of Adulis and stretched around the south coast of Africa. We could argue that it's not native, indigenous, and African name, but it's a name that South Africans wanted to call South Africa, Azania, like Tanzania, like Nigeria. The second song is a song, Thina Sizwe, Thina Sizwe, Esimnya sikalela, sikalela, Izwe elathathwa, elathathwa abamhlophe. Thina Sizwe simnyama, us, we the black nation. Sikalela, we are crying. Sikale Israelite, we are crying for our land, for our nation. Elathathwa, that was taken, abamhlophe, that was taken by white people. As you know, our South African history generally documented with the settlement of Jan van Riebeeck and his chaps in 1652, and how over the years there were skirmishes, small battles and wars that were fought, frontier wars and the like, overland in South Africa in particular. Obviously, we've got the Blood River, we've got the Anglo-Boer War, I think called the South African War today, and many other smaller fights in this country where there were fights over territory, like gangs that are fighting over, like the taxi industry that fights over routes, and by and large, the black people of South Africa were defeated by the British colonialists, who later on would then hand over management of the country to the Boers, the Afrikaans people, who then later on got into a negotiated settlement with the black leaders of the African National Congress. Black people were defeated, of course. It's part of our history, something we cannot run away from. And I wish and hope more black people could embrace the concept of losing, of loss, of being defeated. Because today we obviously hear a lot of black people talk about theft, land theft. Stealing and conquest are two very different concepts. Understanding that they are nuanced. I can fight you in the streets, defeat you and take your cell phone, and then say, no, I conquered you. And you're like, no, you stole my phone. But fundamentally, when you look at the history of the world and what is deemed common understanding, it's this idea of fighting over territory. What's happening with Russia and Ukraine currently, what's happened with China and Taiwan in the past, what's happened with North and South Korea, and places like that, where people fight over land, because land is fundamentally important. For those of you who understand capitalism and building a modern economy, it has to do with three very distinct parts. The first one being land, the second one being capital, and the last one being labor. Capital we call money today, but capital in effect is tools and equipment. So igeja, a plow, a fork, a spade, a rake, a tractor, cows that can plow your land so that you can plant. That's capital, the tools, the means, the tools of production, the means of production. Capital, labor. Labor obviously is hard work. And what happens normally with capitalist regimes taking over is they come and they take the land. And once they take the land, the people of that land, they take the land, and they take the capital. And then the people are only left with the labor. So then what they do is they expect you to bring your labor so that they can rent out a piece of that land and let you use their capital, their equipment to work that land for their benefit. And by and large, the modern economy is still how it works today, where the land is largely owned by a few people. And then all you can offer when they send you to school is labor. And in return for your labor, they let you rent, or they let you have a bond for 20 years, which shackles you. And they give you a little bit of money. Maybe they give you a car so you can shuttle to and from work, because most people actually use their cars to go and plow their trade. It's not to enjoy good times and travel and have fun. It's so that you can go and labor for the owners of the land and the capital. Very, very important. Where we are today, of course, and because I'm a non-racialist, I believe that we are no longer fighting white people per se. by and large, we're fighting rich white elites, but we now also have rich black elites. We have rich Indian and Chinese elites in this country of ours. You know, people like Patrice Motsepe own lots of land. People like Cyril Ramaphosa own lots of land. There's a whole host of black farmers, black businessmen, black miners who own lots of land and who have joined the group of the rich white elites. Obviously, some of them got their shares and their wealth through black economic empowerment, BEE deals. Some of them just worked hard. Someone went to school, they became a chartered accountant, a doctor, an engineer, and they went to work and they took their income and they began buying up land. And then they began putting that land to work. But today they are part of the elite. And unfortunately, by and large, the poor still don't have much of the land. In this country, 15% of our land is owned by government, the state. Another 15% is owned under tribal custodianship by your kings and your chiefs. So about 30% of the land in one way or another is under black control. And it's up to those blacks who are in power, the politicians and the kings and the chiefs, to make sure that they allow poor black people onto this land. Because one thing I know, you do not need money to have a dignified life. Our forefathers a couple of generations back did not have money. However, they did have land. And once you have land and you use your labor, and then you can find capital, whether it's a stick that you're digging with, or you can find some iron ore and make some makeshift tools, you can begin working that land for yourself and for your family. But you need the land. And as long as people don't have land, they will always be slaves to the money system. Because the people that own the land, the people that own the capital, will tell you that for you to come and work on this land, you need money. And the money is with me. However, if you give people land, they can then work the land themselves and they won't need money. Like I said, sadly, about 15%, I mean, KwaZulu on its own, almost 3 million hectares sit under King Misu Zulu as the custodianship under Ingonyama Trust for the benefit of the Zulu nation. How much of that land is being used productively to uplift the Zulu nation? Sadly, not much. A lot of that land is being rented out to rich whites, to rich Indians, to other rich blacks, to mine the land, to build commercial farms on the land, to build factories on the land, to build tourist resorts on the land and make money. And while the Zulu monarch becomes rich, the rest of the Zulu people, they become poor. Shout out to the Royal Bafokeng Nation who took their land, made sure they got into platinum mining, and have used some of that money to uplift their communities, building schools, building clinics, etc., etc. I think it's a great example, and more of us need to study these case studies, not just for tribal land, but for our own families. How can we take the little bit of land that we have, whether it's an RDP or your mom bought a stand or your father has a small plot, how can we take that and then maximize that for the benefit of the family so that we are not slaves to money, but we can enslave ourselves with our labor and use our hands to work this land, to grow our own food, to build our own homes, etc. The middle class and the poor, blacks, whites, Indians, Chinese, need to come together and make this happen, because unfortunately your politicians will keep making it seem like black and white. But we've seen a lot of your politicians are rich. Members of parliament earn 100,000 rand a month. You know, people like Patrice Motsepe are auctioning for buffaloes at 18 million rand. We've heard Minister Nathi Mthethwa, they're going to be putting up a 22 million rand flag, spitting in the faces of the poor they claim to represent. But these are black people. You know, you'll bash Johan Rupert, but you won't bash a Patrice Motsepe. You'll bash a Christo Visa, but you won't bash a Putu Mantlego. You know, it's hypocrisy. And sadly, because you guys vote ANC and EFF, you guys are blinded by race. And you don't see that as a black, white, nurse, teacher, policeman, street sweeper, whatever the case may be, you are part of the people that are being oppressed. You're a white person voting DA, but you don't realize that they're using you for their own agendas. You're a black person voting EFF, but you're being used for an elitist agenda. And it's time that you guys wake up. Sorry for a bit of that history, just to give you context on the songs that I was singing today. So I posted something on Twitter this morning, and that's why I'm making the video this morning, about adopting adult children. So it is a concept I'm not fully ready for personally, but it is a wish of mine. At some point in my research and my studies, I realized that true wealth lies in 4 aspects. The first one is natural land, because what land provides is it provides trees, provides plants, shrubs, roots, herbs, etc. So the land is wealth. Owning land that can pop up trees, that can give you shade, shelter, that can provide fruit that you can eat. Land is valuable. Land obviously comes with water, rivers, I guess oceans if you're close to the ocean, and then obviously through the rivers you can build your own dams. Then there's minerals, what we call minerals today, but it's for me it's things like rocks, sand, precious metals. So if you want to create things from steel, you need iron ore from the ground. If you want to build your own house, you need soil or clay or whatever the case may be. Today obviously we've got gold and silver and all those things, which to me are not really that important. I'm talking about true wealth outside of money that you can use to build real things. So the mineral resources. The third one is animals. True wealth lies in animals, whether it's a horse that you use for transport, a donkey you use to pull things, a cow that you use to plow, and the fact that these animals, we can also use them as food. Sheep, goats, cows, chickens that we can eat. Chickens also give us eggs, for example, and cows also give us milk that we can drink. So animals are the third example for me of true wealth. Then the last one is human beings, and in particular, human labor. Human labor has created the greatest things we have seen on this planet. They've been able to, with their minds, come up with ways to heal a sick animal, to take a person that doesn't have an arm, put on a prosthetic limb and get them to be able to function. Get someone who was born blind to be able to see. Someone with blurry vision to use glasses or use a telescope, binoculars or whatever the case may be, to see further, to see better. So human beings for me are a huge core of true wealth. Of course, now we isolate everything to money, and it's a tool that the rich and the powerful have used to colonize your minds. But fundamentally, you and your body and your mind can create almost anything, along with collaborating with other human beings. And in that realization, I was like, you know what? I don't want money. I actually want human beings. How do I get human beings? I need to colonize their minds. So I obviously did the research of having money. Money is a tool used to colonize minds. I study religion. Religion is a tool used to colonize minds, etc., etc. So that has been my wish, and it's currently my life purpose and my life goal. Penalism, my religion and my culture, is one of the tools I'm using to colonize minds, to get people to agree with me, do what I tell them to do. I do believe it is in their best interests, not because I'm trying to be super wealthy and I'm trying to oppress people and whatever. No, it's because I believe I've got good ideas that can make the world a better place. And for me to do that, I either go for money or I go for human minds. And I'm trying to go for human minds so that even when money doesn't exist or I don't have money, I still own these minds and we can get to work. If we can find a piece of land, and you guys believe in me, we can turn that land into anything that we want without the money. The problem is with the tool of money, which is rigged by a few power players. If I say, let's come on a piece of land and let's build Sun City, let's build Sandton, let's build Dubai, let's build New York City, you'll be asking me, how much are you going to pay me? And your whole mind is now isolated and contained into this concept of money. Instead of the vision I'm trying to give you, that our forefathers didn't have this, but they could create great things. Come be on this land with me. We'll obviously have food, we'll farm, we'll work the land, but then we'll build these great structures and do great things. Don't worry about the money. Money is not true wealth. The true wealth is going to lie in what we can build, our ingenuity, our innovation, and how many other people we can bring here to create great things. Once we can feed ourselves, once we can educate and upskill ourselves, once we have good health, once we can find the right partners to have children with, that's all the wealth we will ever need. Money is just a tool to get things. You cannot eat money. You cannot get into money and drive it away. You cannot fly on top of money. Money is a tool. And I'm telling you that if you create great things, you can get anything you want, because money is just a middleman to the other thing. If I come and I wash your car, you can give me a plate of food. If I come and wash your car, you can give me a plate of food. I don't want your money to eat. I want food. The money is just a middleman for me to get the food. These are some concepts that people whose minds have been colonized by money still don't quite understand. So a lot of people obviously on Twitter are currently bashing me. I've got some DMs on Instagram. On my WhatsApp group, there were a few comments there as well. People not understanding, people saying, this sounds like a cult. The same words that people have been using for a while. And it's sad for me because it's people that don't know me. It's people that don't know what I stand for. And it's people that generally have narrow minds. People that don't understand the world and how it works, that don't understand history, religion. People that are conditioned and that will obviously fight back without realizing the realities of their lives. One of the things I have said is that marriage, by and large, to me, is the adoption of a woman from her family. Just like you adopt a child, you go and you adopt a woman and you bring her into your family. And back in the day, a man would then take this woman that he has adopted and put her to work, give her chores. You cook, you clean, and then on top of that, you are going to give me children. I will plant seeds inside you in the form of sperm. You will bake these seeds and you will give birth to this fruit that will be our children. And these children will then become our employees and will help us carry on building our family legacy or whatever the case may be. But women were adopted to come and be tools for men to build. Not in a negative sense of exploitation, but in a sense of collaboration, where as much as the woman is being adopted by the man to be used by the man for the family, the man himself had responsibilities, one of them being to protect this woman. So no one can attack this woman. She is safe. He has to make sure that he goes out to hunt so that she has meat to cook, or he has a farm and livestock so she has meat to cook. He has to obviously have sex with her to implant these seeds called children for her, and he has to make sure along with her, in collaboration with her, to upskill and educate these children so that they can serve the family, including the woman. But the woman would be adopted by this man, and that's why I should take the man's surname as an example. Fast forward to today, where when Penwell speaks about things like, I want to adopt an adult child aged between 16 to 30. I want him to take my name, Upenwell. I want him to say, Upenwell is my father. He gives me tasks. He tells me what to do. I live with him. He makes sure that I'm fed. And then he tells me, Thina lana, hambo pega, hambanyo washimoto, just like any normal young child. The adult children is what I'm looking for, because I can breed my own young children, and I'll probably also adopt young children as time goes on. There are a lot of adults out there who have become children and who have become beggars of the ANC government. They stand in queues every month to receive a 350 grant. After they have children, they will stand in queues for their children to receive grants, and they've become beggars. Unfortunately, our government doesn't put them to work and doesn't upskill them. That means they will be perpetual beggars. They will constantly be like, Baba, I'm hungry. Baba, I'm sick. Baba, which is not a model that I believe in. My own children that I'm raising with the form of empowerment and independence, so that at some point they can stand on their own 2 feet and then work in collaboration with me and not underneath me. And with these adult children I want to adopt, the same concept will apply. You come to me, I'm an educator. I teach you guys every day. You can imagine that if you're living with me, you're learning knowledge every single day. If we're traveling somewhere, you're meeting really cool people that are in my life. I'm giving you tasks, and where you don't know how to do that thing, I teach you. Or I send you to someone who will teach you how to do this work so you can add value to our family. If one day, like my own biological child, you decide you're strong enough to go and stand on your own 2 feet, you're free to leave. I'm not going to contain and shackle and imprison and exploit you. You are now strong enough. Go out there and be great. That's empowerment. However, if you want to come back and say, look, as much as I'm strong and independent, Baba, I want to work in collaboration with you. You have taught me great things. You have shown me great people, and I want to add to the legacy of this family. That's what I'm trying to do. But obviously it's seen as dodge because I'm saying it, and it's what you guys want to hear is I'm looking for employees. How much will you pay me? Oh, I'll pay you this much per month. And then you must go and find your own place to stay. You must go buy your own food. You must get your own education somewhere. And then I'll make you wear my clothing written ShopRite or Mr. Price or whatever these other companies that actually have other people's names on them. Like, oh, I work for this company, which normally has someone's name. You have become a family member of that white European Asian family. You have become a family member, but you don't see it. You wear their clothing everywhere. If I'm telling you to wear penalism clothing, ooh, this is a cult. But it's not a cult when you wear a uniform of where you work for. It's not a cult when they're giving you money and exploiting your labor because they make multiples of profit. And at no point do they share those spoils with you. Make you a part of the family fundamentally. But you guys, because the way people reason and rationalize is at such a fundamentally low level that when I raise some of these concepts, people get angry. They get very angry, and it's sad for me because it's a reminder of how narrow-minded human beings are, how much people lack critical and independent thinking, and how incredibly successful the indoctrination system and the conditioning machines have been in colonizing your minds. You see nothing wrong with government dictating to you how your children should be raised, forcing you to send your kids to school. You see nothing wrong with that. You see nothing wrong with an education system that is teaching your children hollow education at your expense. You see nothing wrong with your kids being given education at tertiary level to go and work for strangers and build their wealth. You see nothing wrong with that. With other companies marketing to you every single day and telling you this, you must get this latest pair of sneakers and you must wear this jacket. And you see nothing wrong with that. And when Penal says, I want you to be a part of my family, I want you to be my child, I don't want you to be a worker that I can chase away and throw away at any given. I want you to be my family. I want to be your father. I want to upskill and empower you, and I want you to be part of me. And I want you to wear our family uniform, not the uniform of strangers. You'll be like, this is my family. I'm a member of this family. I know how this family works, and I plow into this family. And that is a problem because it's not in a structure that you've gotten used to, which is normally to exploit you guys by the same people that colonized, exploited, and killed your ancestors. It is sad, not surprising, but it's sad. And I'm hoping that more of you will really, really open your minds and look through the label of things into the fundamental aspects of what it is we're speaking about. Look beyond the surface level and ask yourself fundamentally what is happening. So, speaking about cults, because Christianity is a cult, Buddhism is a cult, the Islamic faith, the Abrahamic faiths of Islam, Judaism, and Christianity all come from Father Abraham had many sons. They come from Father Abraham, who also built his own cult. Luckily, 4,000 years later, because it's late and because you guys don't know him, and because there's documents and songs and artworks and all these cool things, you guys don't call it a cult anymore. You call it a religion or a faith. No, I have to bow down to Jesus. Weird things. Eating the body of Christ, drinking the blood of Christ. These really dodgy things. Those are fine. If you look at cultural prescriptions, imndeni yakaZuma nabakaduma kwaZulu bayagcaba. They cut their faces as part of identification for the family. Imndeni yakangubane yona iyanqamula the pinky. They chop off the pinky of the kids as an identification. The bodily mutilation. And that's fine. That's not a cult. That's okay. No, it's their culture. It's their heritage. It shows I keep saying the tininess of the brains, but just the lack of logic and common sense. It's astounding and it's mind-blowing for people like me. Anyways, two of my favorite cultists in this country. I want to read their Wikipedia pages for you, just as a form of education. For any of you, of course, who want to be adopted by me, you can drop me a DM, we can chat, we'll find ways to make it work. You can visit me, chill with me for a few days, see how it feels. You can always go back home. And then let's try and build our own community. Try and build our own religion that 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 years later will be something really special. Create our own music, make our own artworks, have our own disciples, have our own pastors, create institutions, grow our own food, and fundamentally change the world. We have the power to do that. And for me, it's insanely exciting. And I want to be a part of creating something as unique as that. Who should I start with first? Okay, let me start with... I'm going to start with this guy first. Engenas Barnabas Lekganyane. So let me position this laptop a bit better so it's easier for you guys to see me. Engenas Barnabas Lekganyane was born in 1885 and passed away in 1948. Was the founder of the Zion Christian Church, ZCC. He first formed the ZCC in 1924, and by the time of his death, the church had at least 50,000 members. These are the people I aspire to. They are my role models. Under the leadership of his descendants, the ZCC has gone on to have more than 1 million members, primarily located in Southern Africa. It is now by far the biggest of the various Zionist Christian sects that account for roughly half of all Christians in Southern Africa. I should have read this first. Anyways, Engenas Lekganyane was born at Mpome Mission in the Heinertsburg region of the Transvaal in the mid-1880s. His parents, Barnabas Lekganyane and Sephora Rapela, were members of the Mamabulo ethnic group. The Rapela family were the first Christian converts among the Mamabulo and had been instrumental in getting a Lutheran mission established by the Berlin Missionary Society in 1879. Drought, disruptions, and the violence associated with the South African War in 1899 led the Mamabulo chiefs to abandon their homelands for some years. The Lekganyanes appear to have left with them, but then returned home when the chief purchased Syferkuil Farm in 1905 next to the original reserve. Soon after they moved back, an Anglican missionary built a mission and school called St. Andrew's adjacent to Syferkuil. This was the school where Lekganyane received 3 years of education, which had been disrupted in the previous decade. During this time, Lekganyane spent considerable amounts of time working on construction projects, including the building of a church, a school, and a dam. He did not choose to receive baptism or confirmation as an Anglican, although many members of his family, his future wife, and many residents of Syferkuil did. After leaving school, Lekganyane began working around the Transvaal. He had to go work and make a living like many of his era, on the farms and in public works schemes. In his early childhood, Lekganyane joined a new Presbyterian church in the Mamabulo Reserve. According to his earliest known statements, he had been a member of the Free Church of Scotland in training, as or actually being an evangelist under the missionary in that church. It's very interesting for me when you study these people that we call great people, your Nelson Mandelas, the Lekganyane family, the Motsepe family, Elon Musk and all. When you read their stories and not just the surface level of their success and whatever, you realize a lot of these people were normal human beings. They grew up, some went to school, at some point they maybe had to serve in an army, they had to fight in the struggle, they had to go and work on farms. Very normal people that had to struggle. Some had girlfriends, some had wives, some got divorced, some were in prison, etc. And then at some point, they decided to put their hands up and to lead and to say, I'm going to now do something new that no one has done before. And a lot of these guys and women, very charismatic. Some are good looking, some have a great smile, they have a great story, they're great storytellers, they crack the funniest jokes, and in their various skills of language mastery, learning how to sing, maybe fighting and the like, they managed to charm and convince a lot of people to follow their leadership. I believe the story of Jesus Christ is something similar to that. This passionate, rebellious young boy who went to temples and was debating with the priests there and telling them that they're living wrong, and then started going on a global tour, started going on a tour of the countryside, preaching his messages of love, making sure that he had a feeding scheme, his feeding scheme of the fish and the loaves of bread. Feeding schemes. He was attending parties, turning water into wine, befriending prostitutes, and those type of people, Very charismatic person who had his own crew, his board of directors of 12 disciples, and he went out there and he changed the world. And today we have Christianity, which is a cult. Later on, obviously, we had the Christian Crusades that went around killing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people in the name of Jesus Christ. Just as we've seen many Muslim extremists, is the term they used, going and killing and bombing in the name of Allah and the Islamic faith. Just normal gents that got there to change the world. Shout out to Nhlanhla Lux. Conversion to Zionism. Engenas Lekganyane thus had a diverse Protestant background with Lutheran, Anglican, and Presbyterian experiences. He's also said to have been close with his grandfather and uncle on his mother's side, both of whom were pagans and renowned traditional doctors. Around 1911, though, Lekganyane split from Protestantism, with the arrival of the Apostolic Faith Mission in his home area. At this time, the AFM reported that some of its members traveled on foot from Louis Trichardt to Petersburg, during which the most remarkable manifestations of healing occurred. I need to emphasize this. They walked from Louis Trichardt to Petersburg. I don't know how far that is. I can imagine it's very far. During which the most remarkable manifestations of healing occurred. Guys, walk, take walks, go on hikes, find pieces of land that are beautiful to be in nature, and just walk. It does something to your mind. It does something to your body. You get some sunlight. You get fresh air. You get to be amongst nature. Some of your coolest ideas will be born there. My mother and I take a lot of walks. I've started doing it with my brother. I'm starting to do it with my sister, some of my partners as well. Taking walks and just having chats. It's the greatest form of therapy you'll ever do. Some of the counseling and the consultations that I have, because I live close to the Johannesburg Botanical Gardens, I invite people to come and spend an hour with me. It costs 500 Rand an hour. And we take a walk around the Johannesburg Botanical Gardens, which was part of the land of Geldenes. History for another day. Beautiful, beautiful, free park where you walk and you see the beauty of nature. You can even walk barefoot, and we get to speak openly, and you tell me about your marital problems. You tell me that you're struggling with your child. You tell me that you're broke. You tell me that you need business advice. You tell me that you're not sure about religion. You want to learn about penalism. Whatever the case may be, you come and we take a walk. Very, very beautiful, very therapeutic, very necessary. My apologies, let me carry on. The blind, deaf, and crippled were healed, and in Petersburg, the natives came in vast numbers to be prayed for. According to ZCC law, Lekganyane began to suffer from a serious eye ailment at this time and nearly went blind. He then had a vision and was instructed to travel to the Witwatersrand, where he was told that he would be cured by triple immersion. Lekganyane claims to have followed this vision and went to Boksburg and met two Zionist preachers, the Mahlangu brothers, in 1912. They then baptized him using the Zionist method of triple immersion and curing his eyesight ailment in the process. From 1912 until 1920, Lekganyane was a member of the Mahlangu's organization, the Zion Apostolic Church, which itself was a part of the Apostolic Faith Mission. Around 1916, he returned home to Tabagone, where he was the deputy of the ZCC congregation. In 1918, he became the official leader of this congregation, although he fell out with Mahlangu's quickly over issues that are not clear. One of the other cool things that you normally read from some of these stories, and it's part of the advice I give to budding entrepreneurs, is, guys, I know we all have cool ideas, we want to create stuff, we want to put our names, penalism on everything. Spend some time in established groups, organizations, companies, and learn from them. Learn structures, learn how they were built, network with some of their people, etc., etc. You know, like, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to build an app, you want to go into construction. You don't have to get a job. Getting jobs is difficult these days. But go and find a company and volunteer, and literally go to HR or someone and be like, guys, I just want to help. Please don't pay me. And just learn from them. You want to build a church like me, your own religion? Go and join a bumping church like Irima, you know, in Randburg. Irima in Randburg, for example. Go to Rima, go and stand there like I do, because I'm a student of life. Look around the building. Go to their bookshops. Go to their children's section. You know, one of the cool things, I once went to a Rima service. They gave the history of Rima, how it started off with Ray Macaulay going to study in America, coming back. He started preaching in his parents' lounge. People would come through, he'd preach. He then moved, I think, to like a cinema or something. He started a cinema that wasn't being used. He started preaching there. Later on, they raised funds. They got funding from a bank. I think they leased or they bought the land in Randburg. They started building that church that is huge there. Beautiful stories of how they built themselves from where they started. But understanding Ray Macaulay went to other churches to learn how to be a preacher as well. You know, so go and learn. So I'm telling you the story of Barnabas, Engenas. Not sure how to say his name. I apologize to Abantu ZCC. How he went to join these other churches. He had family members that were traditional doctors who were already leaders in some way. He went to join all these different churches, Anglican, Protestant, faith mission, whatever, to learn. And at some point he became a leader before he branched off to create his own thing. Very, very vital education when you don't know where to start. And if you don't have funding, you volunteer for long enough, you add enough value, you'll eventually be hired where you are, you'll get paid. And after being paid, you can take that money and build your own thing on the side. Or if you believe you're in a great company, you can move up to being a CEO or something big in that company, and you can own a stake, 5%, 10%. Then you didn't even need to build your own thing to build the wealth you want and to create the value that you wanted to create. Not long afterwards, Lekganyane seceded with his congregation and went with his new bride, Thina Rabudiba, to Basotho land in 1920 to join Edward Lyon's utopian community under the auspices of the newly formed Zion Apostolic Faith Mission, ZAFM. Did you hear that? To join Edward Lyon. Someone decided to call themselves Lyon as a surname. Edward Lyon's utopian community. The idea of building oranias and off-grid spaces and these eco-green farms and a utopia, it's not new. Once you start studying history like I study and I say I want to build my own kingdom and have a piece of land, and people are like, it sounds like a cult. Sure, that's because most religions and groups started like that. You can imagine when Karel Boshoff and the guys bought the farm that Orania sits on, and they started inviting these Afrikaans people to come and settle there and telling them, no, the ANC black government is coming to destroy the land. It sounds cultish, Jim Jones. But people went there, they believed in him, charismatic leader, speaks very well, and they started building. What you need to do is you need to find a leader that speaks well, that works hard, and where you can see. And you guys are smart today. You guys can interrogate. Is this guy making people eat grass? Is this guy fucking all the young girls that are there? Like, you can see. You can ask. You know, like, at least for me, give me a bit of credit. I'm not a retard. I'm out there. I'm accessible. People can study me. People have met me. I might come up with a crazy idea of my own religion called penalism, but it's not new. That's how a lot of your religions were built, by a normal human being deciding to put his hand up and lead. Lekganyane and his wife stayed in Basotho land for a short time before he was appointed ZAFM's Transvaal leader. This guy was a leader inside out. By 1924, Lekganyane had a sizable membership in the Transvaal with some 17 congregations under him. I'm a franchise, I'm a sword. Tensions between the two arose and came to a head over the name on the ZAFM's Transvaal membership card. After a tension-filled trip to Basotho land, Lekganyane returned home and soon had a vision on the top of Mount Tabagune that instructed him to form his own church. Had a vision on top of a mountain, which means maybe he was hiking, you know, just like Moses who went up to the mountain to get the tablets with the commandments. He then split with Lion to form the ZCC in 1924, taking most of the Transvaal ZAFM members with him. The African National Congress, I forgot its name before. I don't want to waste time with this. But before it was called the ANC, it had another name. I'm just doing this for you guys, for your education, because my channel is a channel for education and knowledge. So you guys can go out there and tell people these things and sound fucking intelligent. Hey, did you know the ANC actually, you know, was founded in what, and it used to be called. So it was called the South African Native National Congress until 1923. There's another name I was looking for. Let me see if I can go to history, origins. Oh no, let's let it go. But just for those that don't know, the organization was founded as the South African Native National Congress, SANNC, in Bloemfontein on the 8th of January, 1912. Its founding leaders were John Langalbalele Dube, Saul Plaatje, and Pixley Isaka Seme. Pixley is a maverick. One day, hopefully, we'll speak about him. Pixley is a maverick. I think he married 2 princesses. I think from the Zulu kingdom and from the Swati kingdom. I think he was like the first black lawyer. At some point, he bought his own huge piece of land and he built his own community. Maverick. Normal human beings that put their hands up to lead. Oh, my point with the ANC was it used to be called something else. The ANC gave birth to Robert Mangaliso Sobuge's Pan-Africanist Congress, the PAC. The ANC gave birth to Inkatha Freedom Party, Yamangosuthu Buthelezi. The ANC has given birth to the Congress of the People, ICOPE, and arguably it's given birth to the Economic Freedom Fighters, the EFF, Yabo Julius Malema. I'm telling you this because you're looking at the story of Engenas Barnabas Lekganyane and how he joined these different churches, at some point, and he became a leader, the community and the church of Edward Lyon, and he became a leader, and then eventually, because of differences in ideologies, which is what normally happens with organizations, he broke away and he created his own thing in 1924. Lekganyane and the ZCC. Although Lekganyane had belonged to 2 Zionist organizations before starting his own church, the ZCC was noticeably different from its predecessors due to innovations that he brought. Lekganyane's ZCC was similar to other Zionist churches in that it emphasized faith healing to win converts. Lekganyane himself is known to have healed a large number of people. During the early years of the ZCC, he allowed his followers to engage in faith healing as well. We don't call them Bushiri, faith healing, Pastor Chris. In 1930, however, he took sole control of all faith healing as the church expanded. Items such as water and paper were blessed at his home base and then sent out to distant congregations where they were ingested or touched by the afflicted. Lekganyane also sanctioned traditional practices such as polygamy and ancestor worship, so he no longer allowed that stuff. The latter practice, ancestor worship in particular, was to prove effective in turning the ZCC into a dynamic fundraising machine. Throughout Lekganyane's lifetime, the church was primarily oral in nature. The ZCC did not generate sacred writings, and Lekganyane's sermons and pronouncements were not written down. Faith healing, testimony, singing, and dancing were instead the focus of worship services. Smoking, drinking, adultery, Western medicine, and engaging in witchcraft were all forbidden. Western medicine. In addition, the ZCC took strong measures to protect all its members against the effects of witchcraft by planting charms around their residences. Lekganyane was seen as having strong powers to protect his flock from external malevolence. Lekganyane introduced the distinctive star badge to his members in 1928, an identity, and all his members were required to wear it in public thereafter. The ZCC's distinctive khaki uniforms were not introduced until the 1950s, however. The ZCC grew rapidly after its establishment. It had a strong base in the northern Transvaal, but spread due to its members' involvement in migrant labor. Lekganyane's reputation as a prophet and a man of immense spiritual power began to spread far and wide, and a wide variety of people from across southern Africa began to journey to his headquarters to consult him. By the 1940s, he had congregations in most parts of South Africa, as well as in Lesotho, Botswana, and Rhodesia. Rhodesia then got split into northern and southern, northern being Zambia, southern being Zimbabwe. So that was Zambia and Zimbabwe. Lekganyane sought to obtain land, and in the late 1930s and early 1940s, purchased 3 farms situated fairly close to his base in Tabakhune. One of these, McLean Farm, would eventually be turned into Zion City, Moriah, by Lekganyane's successor Edward in the 1950s, and would become Africa's biggest pilgrimage site, attracting millions of visitors every Easter. Lekganyane and his senior wife, Thina, had several sons, all of whom were well educated and who vied for the leadership of the ZCC after his death. As we know now, there's the ZCC a star, and the ZCC at Dove. Very interesting stories for you guys. If you have ambitions like me of building your own cult and your own religion and fundamentally changing how people live, these are the stories that are meant to inspire you. Oh, Bubesi. Come on, Kunzmalanga. Isaiah Shembe. I study these things. When I speak, I've done a bit of theology. When people speak about, yeah, but God is the true what, you know, I'm like, I've studied these things. You're speaking to me like I'm some retard who woke up one day and decided to go against Christianity. I've studied this stuff in depth, and I've seen that I have the power to build my own religion. Penalism. Penalism is the answer. Penal is God. One day it will make sense. Not now, but one day it will make sense. This year in June, penalism turns 2 years old. I think I'm so excited. I actually need to take this thing more seriously. And I'm hoping as my membership grows, and as I touch more lives, and as I empower and educate and liberate more people, and as more people wear black, especially with my name somewhere on there, you guys will start understanding the power of me and how I have this vision and this godly aura. Anyways, sorry to deviate. Isaiah Shembe. Yo, lo baba lo. Isaiah Mloyiswa. Mdliwama farmer. Shembe was born in 1865 and passed away on the 2nd of May, 1935. Was the founder of iBandla lamaNazaretha, South Africa, which was the largest African-initiated church in Africa during his lifetime. Shembe started his religious career as an itinerant evangelist and faith healer in 1910. Within 10 years, he had built up a large following in Natal, which I prefer to call KwaZulu, because the name Natal is of Portuguese origin. It means Christmas, and it no longer carries weight, substance for me. They should scrap the name Natal, keep it there in the history books. Oh, we used to be called Natal, cute. Call it KwaZulu, until obviously Upenal comes and defeats the Zulu monarch and he takes over that land. Then you guys can change it and call it KwaPenwel. Within 10 years, he had built up a large following in Natal with dozens of congregations across the province. He passed away at the age of 70, born in Tabamhlope in the Escort area of KwaZulu. Birth and early life. He was born in 1865 at Ntabamhlope, Escort area, in the Drakensberg region of Natal. The Drakensberg is called Ukhahlamba. He had a pure Zulu descent. When he was very young, his family had fled from Ushaka during the Mfikane period. His father, Mayegisa, traced his lineage 4 generations back among members of the Ntungwa tribe. His mother, Sitea, the daughter of Malindi Hadebe, was born at Mtimkulu. Shembe's family left Natal, KwaZulu, for the adjacent Harry Smith district of the Orange Free State in the 1880s. I think Harry Smith is a person's name, Harry Smith, who was a lord somewhere KwaZulu, which was called Natal. And I believe his wife was called Lady Smith. Also has a big town, a town named after her, KwaZulu, called Lady Smith. Lady Smith, Harry Smith. Over time, these names must change, and you guys must name these towns after your great leaders somewhere. It's up to us to change these things. Shembe's family left Natal for the adjacent Harry Smith district of the Orange Free State in the 1880s, ending up there as tenants for an Afrikaner family named the Grabes. The young Shembe appears to have labored for this Boer family as well and spent considerable time working with the farm's horses. There is a considerable law of hagiographic tradition concerned with the young Shembe. Hagiographic has to do with like stories about Jesus, folklore, stories, you know. It was alleged he died, Shembe, and was resurrected at the age of 3 when relatives sacrificed a bull before his body could be interred. He was also allegedly visited by God on many occasions during these years. Shembe claimed that the voice of God taught him how to pray. Thereafter, it commanded him to find a place to pray to God on a regular basis. He started visiting the Wesleyan church that was nearby. He did not spend much time there, however, because the laws that he was taught in vision by the word were not followed by the church. For example, baptism by immersion was not practiced. This was one of the key laws that made him desert the church. By the time of the South African War, the Anglo-Boer War, Shembe was married and was working for the Grabes as a tenant in his own right. The war disrupted his situation, however. After abandoning his wives, he spent some time on the Rand as a migrant. Very interesting that he had wives and Lekganyane also had wives, meaning they were polygynists. Polygamy is the overarching term when one person has more than one married spouse. Polygyny is when a man has more than one wife. Polyandry is when a woman has more than one husband. So he was a polygynist, what you guys call a polygamist. After abandoning his wives, he spent some time on the Rand as a migrant. During this time, he met the African Native Baptist Church in Boksburg, which was led by Reverend William Leshiga, who later baptized him on the 22nd of July, 1906. Very interesting that he was in Boksburg at some point, and Lekganyane was also at a church in Boksburg at some point. Early years as an evangelist. Between 1906 and 1910, Shembe was a minor evangelist in Leshiga's church. The latter visited him in Harrismith in 1906 and baptized him there by immersion. For the following 2 years, he worked as an itinerant evangelist and was then given an official preacher's certificate by Leshiga in 1908. It appeared that Shembe then led a congregation for Leshiga in Witzishoek until 1909, when Leshiga affiliated with John G. Lake's Apostolic Faith Mission. The AFM, Faith Mission. Shembe claimed that the word ordered him to leave his wives and family and go to Natal, KwaZulu. Initially, he resisted separating from his wives. 9 of his children died after that resistance. This was followed by him being shot by lightning after ascending a mountaintop. Again, a mountaintop features. The lightning strike injured his thigh and he took 2 weeks to recover. Eventually, he agreed to follow the word to Natal. He arrived in Durban on the 10th of March 1910. Messengers preceded his arrival into various parts of Natal, proclaiming that a man of heaven had been sent by God to preach to the African people. You know, one of the rumors, one of the urban myths about Isaiah Shembe is that he once climbed on a mountain and said he could fly, and then he jumped and then he died, and people laugh about that thing. I don't know how true it is, that story. But you're hearing a story now as part of history of how when he separated from his wives, 9 of his children died from him being resistant to going to Natal because the word, God, had told him to go to Natal. And that when he got to, and that when he went on a mountaintop, he was struck by lightning, almost like a Thor. Getting these superpowers, supernatural powers. And for me, the key story here is, I've said before that language is God, and you need to learn how to master story. Because if you can master language, and mind you, I've been reading a lot of big words here, itinerant, hagiographic. If you don't understand English or language at a fundamental level, you end up losing the essence of what you're being taught here. Master language, and then after mastering language, learn how to tell a story convincingly. Talking about how your mother was a virgin, and you were born of a virgin mother, and you're the son of God. That story. Thor, the son of Odin, the god of thunder. That story. And if you tell it well enough and convincingly enough people that are inspired by your story begin telling your story as if it's pure fact and history. And it gets documented in history books, and it gets converted into music, it gets converted into other books, it gets converted into movies, it gets converted into art pieces. And what was a story that was made up becomes real. It comes to life, and people fundamentally believe it as true. Leader of the Church of Nazareth. By all accounts, there's a pun coming up here because of the lightning. By all accounts, Shembe had an electric effect and was able to rapidly build congregations in a number of areas. He formed iBandla lamaNazaretha, the Nazareth Baptist Church, in 1913, with his converts consisting primarily of poverty-stricken migrants living at the margins of Natal's urban areas. So he went for the poor as a solution. He was the Noah of his time, saying, "My church is the ark. I will save you." In 1911, just like Lekganyane, he purchased a freehold farm and established a holy city at Ewupagameni that sought in part to keep his people on the land free of white control. He also established a yearly pilgrimage to the holy mountain of Ntlangalazi, an event that was central to the Nazarites. For those of us that are researching, I'm like, okay, so Historisa must involve climbing on a mountain. Historisa must involve buying a piece of land that is going to become like our Orania and our utopia. Part of it must involve like having a pilgrimage where people travel every year in this holy city, etc., etc. It's a researcher, guys. This is how you build a religion. I'm giving you guys a blueprint. As his following grew and he could not provide land for everyone, Shembe began training his followers to be exemplary workers. His exhortation and strict religious regiments turned his followers into a distinctive group known for their honesty, punctuality, and work ethic. When he realized that he couldn't accommodate everyone, he said, okay, I will turn you guys into soldier employees that are disciplined, that work hard, that the mlungu, the boss, will say, are you part of ZCC lamaNazaretha? And you're like, yes. They're like, come work for me. You know, if you look in South Africa now, some of the greatest cheap labor that is exploited is foreigners, generally undocumented foreigners that come from places like Malawi, Mozambique, who are Muslim. And because they are Muslim, they obviously have a strict faith. They pray 5 times a day. They don't drink. So they're not coming to work babalast. You know, and they're honest because they believe in their faith, Allah. They're more disciplined, of course, than some of the Christians that we know. So Ushembe made sure that he was like, guys, when people hire you out there and they see that you're part of my church, they will know that they're getting quality and they will hire you and you'll get jobs. Imagine being a panelist and everywhere you go and you tell people you're a panelist, people feel like they're meeting a celebrity. They're like, so you've made panel? You're like, yeah. And they're like, so you practice all the principles? You're like, yes. I see you wearing black, yes. But that means you're probably like super intelligent. You know how to like see through shit. It means you're non-racialist. You're non-sexist. You know, it means you're probably a leader wherever you are. It means you're not a beggar. It means you can do for self. You're self-sustaining. You grow your own food. You probably have superior weapons. Like, I'm honored to meet you. If you can build people like that, you know, just want to deviate a bit and talk about business. Let me find this guy's name because it's important. The founder of, I think, UFC. Because there's a story I want to tell you here quickly. Is this the guy I'm looking for? No, it's not. Dana White is the name I'm looking for, actually. Dana White is an American business executive serving as the current president of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the UFC, the largest mixed martial arts organization in the world. Under his leadership, the UFC has grown into a globally popular multi-billion-dollar enterprise. In August 2019, White's net worth was estimated at $500 million US. Why am I mentioning this? I'll speak about panelists. I was speaking about Isaiah Shembe turning his workers into these super soldier workers that everyone wants to hire. Imagine I come to your shop and I find, or you have a franchise and you have Pakistanis and you have Malawians and you have Chinese people. I'm like, it's said, you hired the people with the highest work ethic. Those of you that have seen Mam Kize, Shonim Kize, she's hired the Asian, these women that are her maids. You know, high work ethic can be exploited, but for her it was also gonna come with problems, whatever. Why I'm speaking about the UFC copied the model of the McMahon family, which found a model which was probably copied as well, building a platform, WWE, which created superstars. And once you create superstars, you make so much money, and everywhere people see your superstars, it adds to your brand. The McMahon family through WWE have created brands like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Undertaker, Rey Mysterio, you know, Brock Lesnar, John Cena, you know, Batista, who have gone on to become movie stars, who have gone on to change the world and motivate people and be examples for kids that want to gym, positive role models. You know, because of this platform that is also a multi-billion-dollar platform, Dana White and the guys at UFC have used a similar model in building the UFC into a multi-billion-dollar brand. Having guys, I think, I don't want to lie to you, but I think, Conor McGregor. Let me actually find some of these names because I'm not really a big UFC guy. But I'll tell you, the commentator is very famous. It's a guy I love very much, Joe Rogan. UFC biggest stars, I think. When you create superstars that go out there into the world and other kids are excited to see them, it adds to your brand, makes your brand bigger. Of course, Conor McGregor, Khabib, I think he's from Eastern Europe, if not Russia. You know. Okay, we'll just stick with Conor McGregor. But people that watch UFC, cage fighting, mixed martial arts, so to speak. I don't know where I'll ever find this interview. But Lil Wayne was addressing the newly signed members of Young Money, Cash Money, YMCMB, Drake, Nicki Minaj, Tiger, Gada Gada. There were a couple of other people there. Forgotten their names. Whatever. He was speaking to them after they'd signed them. So YMCMB was under Cash Money, which is owned by Brian Williams, Birdman, and his brother Ronald Slim Williams. So they gave birth to the subsidiary, which was meant to be co-owned by Birdman, Lil Wayne, and their CEO, Mac Main. So Lil Wayne is speaking to these guys because a lot of these guys signed to YMCMB because they idolize Lil Wayne. You know, you can imagine someone like an MT who's bumping with your roll-up. Tandi Voroso. You know, so you've got an MT who's going out there being hot for Ambitious. And then they built, like, let's say, a Young Ambitious, where MT is going out there recruiting or Black Diamond, going out there recruiting Os Java, for example. You know, because people are like, oh my gosh, I want to be like this guy. He inspires me. So Lil Wayne is speaking to these guys in a whatever space they were in. And he was telling them, guys, you need to become superstars. You need to become superstars. And what happens when you brand yourself as a superstar is that people don't care as much about the music. By the time you release the music, people are already obsessed with who you are. They want to know how you look, how you dressed, your hairstyle, your beard, your tattoos, the way you speak, the way you laugh. If you've got like a tag, Maybach music, you know, Penuel, the black pen, you know, have these things that are constantly playing in people's heads. Nicki Minaj and the Barbies, you know, Drake, Tiger with his tats all over his body, you know, and you become a superstar and everyone wants to be like OVO, October's very own, and they want to be there with Nicki Minaj and they want to get like pink hair and get people obsessed with who you are. Because once these brands are out there, it adds value to YMCMB. And there's a video of a bodybuilder called Kai Green. Kai Green's an amazing guy. If you ever watch his videos, Kai Green speaks about meeting Busta Rhymes. Busta Rhymes was my first and what's still one of my favorite rappers in the world. In the world. He was speaking about meeting Busta Rhymes and how Busta Rhymes gave him this piece of advice that you need to brand yourself into a cartoon character. You need to be a cartoon character. Like, people must be able to draw you. And you must have like a name that sounds anime. Kai Green, Busta Rhymes. Like, is this like an Avenger? Like Spider-Man, Nicki Minaj? Like, what the fuck? You know, so how do you look? How do you look unique? And if you see some of these rappers and some of these slay queens, like you walk into a Santon and you see a slay queen walking past, thin waist, tight leggings, the ass is out, the hips are wide, the makeup, the weaves and the wigs are on fleek, the eyelashes are on fleek, the nails, and then the Louis Vuitton bag and the shades, and this chick is just walking there with her lips. Hi, and you're just like, I feel like I'm looking at like a lion in a zoo. Like, this is unique. I don't see girls like this every day. This is like a creature, like with Faith in Ketsi. This is like, what's happening here? If a Nicki Minaj shows up with her fat ass, and if a Lady Gaga shows up, I think Akon did something awesome with Convict Music. Discovered Lady Gaga, turned her into a superstar. Discovered T-Pain, turned him into a superstar with a whole host of other people. Brand these people into superstars, into like cartoon characters. If you think Rick Ross, you think of big beard, you think of fat, you think of shade, you think of Maybach music. You know, so now when like another fat guy with a beard, you're like, oh, Rick Ross. If you hear somebody saying, you're like, hey, that's Rick Ross, Maybach music. If you look at Lil Wayne at his peak, or 2008, short, Dreads. Little boys were making dreads because of Lil Wayne. They were getting tats. I want to be like Weezy. I want to be like Weezy. I want to be like Weezy. You hear even at some point, I think, with KO, especially when I listen to verse yake on Ranchozi. My flow is so hazardous. Fanagiti, can nobody handle us? I annihilated all my competition, so there's no further challenges. But if you listen to the way he sounds and his flow, and even at the end where he's like, see the grind, yeah. Like, you can hear that's a Lil Wayne influence. Having this, because when you listen to Lil Wayne speaking normally, he's got like a deeper voice, like, nah, Lil Wayne. But in his rapping, he's like, yeah, Weezy F baby. Don't forget building yourself into this cartoon character where like little kids want to wear like your John Cena t-shirt. Mom, I want to be like John Cena. You can't see me. You can't see me. Can you smell what the Rock is cooking? Like, build yourself into that. Sorry, I deviated, but I just wanted to highlight this concept because I think it's a teachable moment. So with Isaiah Shembe, he was branding his congregants to be exemplary employees so that everyone would want to hire them. Sorry for going off on a sidetracking. Where was I? Okay. As his following grew and he could not provide land for everyone, Shembe began training his followers to be exemplary workers. His exhortation, I told you guys about English, and strict religious regimens turned his followers into a distinctive group known for their honesty, their punctuality, something that, oh, Dak, you need to fucking stop, and work ethic. Respect time. Respect time. Some of you will never be hired. Some of you will never get a tender. Some of you will never be considered for certain opportunities. Some of your own friends will never call you for money because you don't respect time. Show up on time. Be there early. And then once you're there, work ethic. Deliver. That'll make sure that people that you knew in primary school remember you. They're like, I want this to work with this penal guy because he shows up on time and he adds value. Punctuality. African time yamasimba. African time yokunuga. Respect time. Respect other people's time. Respect yourself. It's a form of integrity. Having value on yourself. Let me respect my own time. In addition to his preaching and healing, Shembe was known for composing numerous Zulu hymns and sacred dances, for creating sacred costumes that combined Zulu and European clothing styles, for developing a new liturgical calendar that took out Christmas, Easter, and Sunday worshiping, and for dietary laws that included a restriction against eating chicken, pork, and other unclean foods as found in the Old Testament of the Bible. Isaiah Shembe, back in the 1913, 1920s, this guy was making music, making his own music. He was coming up with his own dances. He was creating his own clothing. Before the Yeezys and the Nikes and the Louis Vuittons and the Trips and the Batus, he was creating his own clothing, which was a combination, a collaboration of Zulu and European clothing styles. This guy was like futuristic. Essentially, came up with his own calendar. We're speaking now about the African calendar where New Year is meant to be in September, where our spring and our rebirth actually starts. And he went and he had his own diet. Just as we have halal for the Muslims, just as we have kosher for the Jews, Shembe had his own dietary laws for his people. Leadership, that's leadership. He advocated worship on the biblical Sabbath rather than on a Sunday, so on Saturday. He chose to identify instead with the Sabbath of God, Jehovah. He saw the Sabbath as essential to the wholeness and well-being of Africans. In the 1930s, Shembe, who was an autodidact in terms of literacy and theology, an autodidact is someone who is self-taught, because Isaiah Shembe never went to school. He wasn't tainted. Jacob Zuma was tainted a little bit, dropped out in grade 4, but it's pretty cool. Caspar Nyovest dropped out, I think, in grade 11. These are the people that didn't go to school. I think Lil Wayne dropped out when he was 11 years old, even though he loved school, So these guys weren't fully indoctrinated by the education system that has captured your minds. Shembe, who was an autodidact in terms of literacy and theology, commissioned his neighbor, John Dube, to write his biography. Let me just check if this is the same John Dube with ANC. Commissioned his neighbor. John Lekganyane Dube was a South African essayist, philosopher, educator, politician, publisher, editor, novelist, and poet. He was the founding president of the South African Native National Congress, SANNC, which became the African National Congress in 1923. He was an uncle to Dr. Pixlika Isaka Seme, with whom they founded SANNC along with Dube. Dube served as the president. It's not really important. Now we start seeing human collaboration and how these stories link. John Lekganyane Dube was a neighbor, Shembe. So two leaders, one pushing religion, the other one pushing politics, and how they worked together. And when John Dube wrote a biography on behalf of Isaiah Shembe. This book, Shembe, appeared shortly after its subject's death. This biography contains much of the essential Shembe law and hagiography. Because Dube was an ordained minister and not a Nazarite, he does not always present Shembe in flattering terms. His bona fides as a prophet are questioned, while his ability to extract financial contributions from his membership is highlighted. Shembe's followers, though, wrote down many of his teachings. As a result, the Nazarite Church has an extensive written theological corpus, perhaps the largest of any African-initiated church. Because his followers were documenting a lot of his stuff, they've got a lot of writings, and it says here, perhaps the largest of any African-initiated church. I'm lucky today that I've got videos, I've got social media, I've got you guys. So besides my book, Penalism Principles, which is my life guide and my Bible, you guys can always quote me here. When you guys decide to write pieces about me or make artworks about me or make music about me, it will be because at least you guys have it straight from the horse's mouth. And then from there, you guys can become the disciples, or you can become the people that write the various gospels as in the Bible as well. Shembe's legacy has created some controversy. In a 1967 book, G.C. Oosthuizen argued that the movement was a new religion that sees Isaiah Shembe as the manifestation of God. On the other hand, Oosthuizen was attacked by Bengt Sunkler and Absalom Vilakazi as being too westernized to understand Zulu culture, and claimed that the movement remained Christian. On the other hand, Oosthuizen's view has been embraced by two of Shembe's successors, his younger son Amos Shembe and his grandson Londa Shembe, who, although they fought with each other over who was the legitimate successor and eventually formed two separate branches of the church, both of whom believe that Shembe did indeed create something new. Today, iBandla lamaNazaretha is no longer recognized as a church that affiliates under Christianity. Rather, it is an independent religion, the religion of amaNazaretha. Hope you guys will have a blessed day. Love you guys very much.